two grown men drove a van shaped like a dog across America to return a briefcase full of money that they definitely should not have touched. Released in 1994 by New Line Cinema, Dumb and Dumber followed Lloyd Christmas, played by Jim Carrey, and Harry Dunn, played by Jeff Daniels, two completely clueless friends who started a trip across the country to Aspen, Colorado. Their goal was to return a forgotten briefcase to Mary Swanson, played by Lauren Holly. But the way they tried to do it created total chaos. Directed by Peter and Bobby Farrelly, the movie strongly used slapstick, gross-out humor, and physical comedy similar to silent films, and somehow turned a medium-budget risk into a worldwide hit. Today, we are going to count down 15 strange and crazy facts about Dumb and Dumber. And stay until number 15 because the Aspen you remember from this movie never actually existed. And the hotel they used has a connection to one of the most famous horror novels ever written. But before we start, do not forget to like, subscribe, and support this video. It helps YouTube show this to more classic movie fans just like you. Alright, grab your orange tuxedo and let's start the journey.
Number 1. The comedy was half script and half chaos. Dumb and Dumber felt like a movie that was only barely under control, and that is because a large part of it actually was not controlled. About 15% of the film was made up on the spot. The production followed something they called a 2+1 rule. 2 takes that followed the script, and then 1 take where anything could happen. And Jim Carrey treated that third take like it was his own playground. The most annoying sound in the world? Yes, that was not written in the script. The scene originally only had Harry and Lloyd arguing in the car to annoy the hitman, Joe Mentalino. Then Carrey suddenly turned around and asked, "Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?" And then he made the sound.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Guys! If you watch carefully, Jeff Daniels looks truly surprised before he joins in. And actor Mike Starr's scared reaction in the back seat was completely real. The man was not acting. He was simply trying to get through the moment. And then there was the big gulp moment. Those two men standing outside the 7-Eleven were not paid extras. They were local people who were just watching the filming. Carrey walked up to them and said, "Big gulps, huh? All right, well, see you later." And then he simply walked away.
Hey, guys. Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
Whether they fully understood that they were being filmed or were simply surprised when Jim Carrey suddenly appeared out of nowhere, the result was the same. That perfectly awkward moment with no response became one of the most quoted scenes in the entire movie. Even smaller moments were made up on the spot. When Lloyd walks out of the bar in Aspen and notices a framed newspaper headline from 1969, his shocked line, "No way, we landed on the moon?"
No way.
That's great. We landed on the moon!
Was completely made up on the spot. It perfectly showed the idea that Lloyd had been out of touch with the world for about 25 years, and the Farrelly brothers loved it so much that they kept it in the movie without any hesitation. That loose and unpredictable energy was planned chaos. The Farrellys gave Carrey just enough freedom to go anywhere with his performance, and the result was a movie where audiences could never fully tell what was written in the script and what was simply a man losing control on camera. That is the thing that made Dumb and Dumber feel so exciting. It always felt like the next joke could come from absolutely nowhere.
Number 2, I Got Worms accidentally became a business plan. The I Got Worms joke was written as the ultimate stupid business idea.
I got worms.
I beg your pardon?
That's what we're going to call it. I got worms.
Lloyd is completely convinced that special worm farms are the next big thing. He says it with full confidence, full belief, completely unaware of how very unappealing that idea sounds to most people. That was the joke. And then real life completely missed the punchline. After the movie was released, real businesses that sold worms started getting phone calls. Because, yes, there were already real companies selling worms, and some of them reported an increase in people quoting the movie or asking about European night crawlers. It did not stop at phone calls either. Some fans were truly inspired enough to try starting their own worm farms after watching the movie. Lloyd Christmas accidentally became a small business influencer.
No?
Nope. My friend Harry and I are saving up our money to open our own pet store.
That's nice.
The store used for I Got Worms was part of the Breckenridge, Colorado filming, where most of the movie's Aspen street scenes were shot. And while the fictional worm farm never actually opened for business, something else experienced a very real increase: blue and orange tuxedos. After the movie became successful, sales of those very bright prom and wedding suits quickly went up. Matching friend Halloween costumes have never been the same since then. The loudest formal clothes in movie history started a fashion trend that absolutely nobody asked for. Number 3. Lloyd's tooth? That was not special effects. That grin? Lloyd Christmas's strange, slightly crazy, stays in your dreams kind of grin. It looked like something a makeup team spent hours creating, but it was real. When Jim Carrey was in elementary school, a bully attacked him on the playground and broke a small piece of one of his front teeth. Over the years, he had it covered with a dental veneer and continued living his life like a normal person. But then, Dumb and Dumber came along. Carrey was getting ready for the role and decided that Lloyd did not look dumb enough yet. Something was missing. Then he remembered the old injury. So he called his dentist, had the veneer taken off, and instantly changed into Lloyd Christmas. The grin went from silly to slightly wild in a single dentist visit. He kept the cap off for the entire filming, which meant that this was not just a choice for the camera. Carrey walked around looking like that for months, off the set, in public, at dinner, everywhere. The man fully committed to living with Lloyd's face. And according to reports, his wife at the time, Lauren Hawley, who played Mary Swanson in the movie, was not very happy about sharing a bed with that smile every night. But the chipped tooth became part of Lloyd's signature look. A childhood playground injury turned into one of the most recognizable smiles in 1990s comedy, and Carrey did not need a single minute in a makeup chair to make it happen. The man let his dentist do the hard work for him. Number 4, the sea bass scam. It was not just stupid, it was self-aware. When Lloyd uses the put it on his tab trick at the diner and tricks Seabass, he casually says that he learned the trick from a movie. That was not just an unimportant line.
Seabass and the fellas offered to pick up our check. They said just put it on their tab.
That was a full inside joke hidden in plain view. In the 1986 movie Something Wild, Jeff Daniels played a serious businessman named Charlie who gets pulled into chaos. Early in that film, Melanie Griffith's character convinces him to avoid paying a restaurant bill using the same exact trick.
Sometimes you don't pay for your lunch. Or maybe you steal the occasional candy bar or newspaper.
Casual distraction, quiet exit, gone before anyone notices. Fast forward to Dumb and Dumber, and Lloyd uses the same exact trick on Seabass with complete confidence. And when Harry looks confused, Lloyd brushes it off by saying, "I saw it in a movie." The movie he is talking about starred his own co-star.
Genius, Lloyd. Sheer genius. I mean, where did you come up with a scam like that?
Saw it in a movie once.
That was incredible.
Jeff Daniels is standing right there while Lloyd explains a trick from a Jeff Daniels movie, and Harry does not react at all. The lack of awareness works on 2 levels at the same time, and the layers keep building on each other. In Something Wild, Daniels' character is the one who gets taught the scam. In Dumb and Dumber, he is the clueless best friend watching someone else successfully use it. Same actor, same trick, but totally different levels of understanding. Number 5, the Saturday morning version that nobody asked for. After Dumb and Dumber became a huge hit in 1994, it joined the popular 1990s trend of turning successful movies into Saturday morning cartoons. In 1995, Hanna-Barbera turned Harry and Lloyd into animated characters for ABC, and the show holds a small but strange place in TV history. It was the last Hanna-Barbera series to premiere on a major broadcast network, the end of an era, caused by 2 guys who cannot even find Colorado on a map. But if you were expecting Jim Carrey or Jeff Daniels to be part of it, that did not happen. Neither of them came back. Instead, Lloyd was voiced by Matt Frewer, who was known as Max Headroom, and Harry was voiced by Bill Fagerbakke, who later became the voice of Patrick Star in SpongeBob SquarePants. So Harry Dunn basically became a practice role for another famous cartoon idiot.
And since this was a cartoon, things got even more ridiculous. The series added a purple pet beaver named Kitty. In a running joke, Harry and Lloyd were too dumb to realize she was a beaver and kept treating her like a cat. Every episode doubled down on the stupidity. The show did still have a real link to the original film. It was written by Bennett Yellen, who also co-wrote the 1994 screenplay, but even that was not enough to save it. It lasted 13 episodes, ran for 5 months, and then it was canceled.
Number 6. Written behind a motel front desk. Before Dumb and Dumber made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Do you think?
Why would she have you meet her at a bar at 10 in the morning?
I just figured she was a raging alcoholic.
Peter and Bobby Farrelly were working at a rundown motel in Cumberland, Rhode Island. Their father owned the motel, and while the brothers were trying to break into Hollywood, they also worked at the front desk just to pay the bills. And that is where they wrote the screenplay. Between checking in guests and answering phone calls, they would go back to adding jokes about two idiots on a road trip. The glamour of Hollywood at its best. That working-class writing setup became part of their creative style. It is often seen as the reason their films have such real, everyday humor. The kind of comedy that feels like it was written by people who have actually had bad jobs. Because, well, they did. And the motel was not even the hardest part. Before Dumb and Dumber was ever made, the Farrellys spent 9 years in Hollywood without a single movie being produced. 9 years of rejection. During that time, they were reportedly living on credit card debt and pure stubbornness. The script that eventually made millions was written behind a motel front desk by two guys who could not get Hollywood to answer their calls. The American dream, driven by vacancy signs and pure hope.
Number 7. Harry and Lloyd were a silent film throwback. Harry Dunn and Lloyd Christmas. If you put those first names together, you get Harold Lloyd. That was not a coincidence.
Got a little dippy going too fast out here.
The Farrelly brothers deliberately named the characters as a tribute to one of the biggest icons of silent film comedy. Harold Lloyd was known for his dangerous stunt comedy, most famously hanging from a clock tower in Safety Last back in 1923. He was performing physical comedy at life-threatening heights decades before Jim Carrey ever wore an orange tuxedo. And the connection goes deeper than just the name. Like Harold Lloyd's work, Dumb and Dumber relies heavily on slapstick, big reactions, and strong physical acting that carries just as much weight as the dialogue. The Farrelly brothers have often pointed to silent-era legends like Lloyd, Buster Keaton, and Charlie Chaplin as key inspirations for the film's visual comedy. The kind of humor where a perfectly timed fall can say more than a whole page of dialogue. There is even a personality connection as well. Harold Lloyd's screen character was usually an honest, good-hearted man who accidentally ended up in ridiculous situations just because of his optimism. Harry and Lloyd are not exactly skilled or aware. Calling them aware would be generous. But they are truly sincere.
I'd say a good 5 hours.
They truly believe they are doing the right thing by returning the briefcase. Two lovable idiots on a cross-country journey with the best intentions and the worst instincts. Under all the toilet humor and the taped-up parakeets, Dumb and Dumber is quietly paying respect to a comedy tradition that is more than 100 years old. Harold Lloyd would probably appreciate the tribute once he got past the whole, laxative scene. Number 8. The gallbladder attack everyone thought was just a bit. Jim Carrey could fall on the floor in the middle of a scene and nobody would even react. That reputation almost cost him a real gallbladder problem. During filming of Dumb and Dumber, Carrey suddenly bent over in serious pain while shooting at an airport. He hit the ground, rolled around, and the crew thought it was just another one of his jokes. This was a man known for extreme physical comedy. Acting crazy was basically his normal state, so even the medical team on set did not immediately worry. It looked like normal Jim Carrey behavior, but it was not. The pain was real. He was having a gallbladder attack. Once everyone understood that this was not comedy, but a real medical emergency, Carrey was taken quickly to the hospital. Doctors removed his gallbladder and told him to rest, which would already be serious enough, but then things got even stranger. Co-star Karen Duffy asked if she could keep his gallstones after the surgery so she could turn them into cufflinks. Carrey agreed, and then later said he had already given them to the woman he was dating at the time. The man treated his own gallstones like small gifts. What? And even though doctors told him to take it easy, Carrey returned to the set almost right away. On his first day back, the Farrelly brothers had him shoot the very physical Briefcase fight scene with Jeff Daniels, rolling on the ground in full contact because it was the only night they could get that location. Gallbladder gone, doctors ignored, and he was back on the floor doing slapstick like nothing happened. The man simply could not stop being Jim Carrey. A quick pause real quick. If you are enjoying this deep dive into one of the most chaotic comedies of the 1990s, hit that like button. It shows YouTube that you want more behind-the-scenes stories from movies that had no reason to work. And leave a comment with your favorite Dumb and Dumber moment. All right, let's get back to the road trip.
Number 9. The blind kid punchline that took 20 years. Billy Inforcio, the blind kid, the head taped back on, that joke landed in 1994 and then stayed quietly in a corner for about 20 years, waiting for its return.
Petey? Petey? You sold my dead bird to a blind kid?
In the original film, Billy is the kid that Lloyd tricks by selling him Petey, a very dead bird with its head very obviously taped back into place. It is one of the most unforgettable dark jokes in the movie, and everyone assumed that was the end of it. 20 years later, Brady Bloom, the actor who played Billy, returned to play the same character again in Dumb and Dumber 2, making it one of the longest-running joke callbacks in comedy sequel history. And the behind-the-scenes story is almost funnier than the scene itself. When the Farrelly brothers began working on the sequel, they were not even sure what had happened to Bloom. He had already left acting and was working in education. So how did they find him? Facebook. The internet literally pulled Billy Inforcio back into Hollywood. Even though he was the original actor, the studio still made him audition for his own role. They needed to check if his timing still worked. And he passed. Apparently 2 decades did not weaken his delivery. In the sequel, Billy is now an adult, still living in the same apartment, surrounded by a huge collection of rare exotic birds. And the kid who was once tricked with a dead parakeet grew up into a serious bird collector. And Lloyd, of course, still says the same line. Pretty bird.
Pretty bird. Yes, pretty bird.
Number 10. The studio tried to replace Harry before he even started. Jeff Daniels was not New Line Cinema's first choice for Harry. In fact, the studio was very clear that they did not want him at all. Daniels was known for serious dramatic roles like Gettysburg. Not exactly the kind of background you point to when pitching a movie where a man's tongue sticks to a ski lift.
I can't feel my fingers anymore. I lie, they're numb.
And the studio wanted a bigger comedic name, and they were not shy about it. So they offered him a low payment, hoping Daniels would look at it, feel offended, and walk away. But he accepted right away. The plan failed so quickly, it left marks. And to make things worse, the studio was so unsure about Daniels that they kept a comedian ready on standby during the first week of filming. They checked his daily footage every night, before finally and reluctantly deciding to stick with him. The man showed up to work every day knowing someone else was sitting in the parking lot in case he failed. And the pressure was not only coming from the studio, Daniel's own agents were also worried.
Will host annual host annual an annual meeting of.
They warned him that the movie could ruin his dramatic career, that Jim Carrey would completely overshadow him, and that serious acting roles might disappear overnight. Meanwhile, Nicolas Cage had already been offered the role of Harry. Cage reportedly tried to negotiate an extra $2 million in his salary. The studio refused, as you might expect, so he turned it down and went on to star in Leaving Las Vegas instead. That role won him an Academy Award, which means Harry almost went to an Oscar winner who did not even like the pay offer. But both the Farrelly brothers and Jim Carrey strongly pushed to keep Daniels. Carrey specifically wanted a real dramatic actor who could balance him, not another comedian trying to match his energy. He understood the movie needed a straight man who could react seriously and make the absurd situations feel believable. The studio tried to replace Harry before filming even properly began, but it is a good thing they lost that argument, because without Daniels,
there would be no deadpan reactions, no perfect timing, and no chemistry that made the whole film work.
Number 11. The salary that rewrote Hollywood's paycheck rules. When Jim Carrey first signed on for Dumb and Dumber, his deal was about $350,000, which was good money for a comedian who was still building his reputation.
Lloyd, what are you doing?
It feels like you're running at an incredible rate, Harry.
Quit it. We're not even through Connecticut yet, and already you're annoying me.
Sorry.
Then Ace Ventura: Pet Detective hit theaters, and it did not just perform well. It stayed at number 1 for weeks, like it had no plans of leaving. With every week it stayed there, Carrey's asking price went up. The $350,000 turned into renegotiations, and those renegotiations turned into $7 million, which was almost half the movie's total budget. That kind of bargaining power almost never happens during production. Studios were watching Ace Ventura make huge money in real time, and suddenly the actor they had signed for a small paycheck was the most in-demand star in the world. And it did not stop there.
Feels good to mingle with these laid-back country folk, don't it, Harry?
I like it a lot.
Dumb and Dumber's success, combined with Ace Ventura and The Mask, turned Carrey into the first actor to receive a $20 million upfront salary for 1996's The Cable Guy. In just about 2 years, he went from a rising comedian to the person who completely changed what Hollywood was willing to pay a comedic actor. Number 12. The title that sounded like a hardware store disclaimer. Before Dumb and Dumber fully embraced its own stupidity, the Farrelly brothers originally gave the script a title that sounded like something you would see printed on the side of a lawnmower. A power tool is not a toy.
Still want to go to Aspen?
Oh, yeah! Okay, let's go, buddy!
They pulled the phrase directly from a warning label. Completely random, completely absurd, which, to be fair, did match two guys whose combined decision-making skills are basically near zero. But the bad title was intentional. Agents and studio executives kept rejecting anything that looked like a dumb comedy immediately. So the brothers thought that if the script looked more like a quirky indie film or an offbeat drama, people might actually open it instead of throwing it away. It was basically a disguise. And even with that hardware store cover, the script still got rejected by every major studio in Hollywood. But a power tool is not a toy did end up serving one lasting purpose. It became a reminder that sometimes the best comedy has to sneak in through the back door. The Farrelly brothers spent years getting rejected, and the only reason anyone even opened the script was because it did not sound like what it really was. The dumbest movie of the decade needed the smartest disguise just to get a meeting. Number 13, the dog van was a real vehicle under all that fur. The Mutt Cuts van, that shaggy, tongue-wagging, ear-flopping mobile dog grooming van that looked like it should not be street legal, was actually built on top of a 1984 Ford Econoline.
Okay, gang, you know the rules. No humping, no pushing, no sniffing heinies.
Where have you been?
Not exactly the most glamorous space model, but honestly, glamour was never the point. The production team covered the entire thing, inside and out, in over 1,700 square feet of shag carpeting. That is enough carpet to cover a decent-sized house, except they stuck it onto a van and then gave it a face. Floppy ears, short legs, and a wagging tail, plus that pink tongue hanging off the front bumper completed the design. And if you needed to get gas, you had to lift the rear dog leg to reach the fuel cap. Because, of course you did. They actually built two versions, one on the Ford Econoline and a backup built from a Chevrolet van. The Chevy version was never even used on camera, making it one of the most overbuilt backup vehicles in comedy film history. And keeping it camera-ready was a constant problem. Shag carpet is not really made for highway speed or mountain weather. Between wind, moisture, and general wear from driving through Colorado, the exterior needed constant maintenance just to keep it from looking like a soaked dog. Which, to be fair, it already kinda did. In the film, FBI agents even identify it as an '84 sheepdog.
We're really doing it though, aren't we, buddy?
Yeah. Hey, where'd you get those?
I bought one we filled up.
Which is one of the best throwaway lines in the entire movie.
And after the film became a hit, the Mutt-Cuts van became one of the most replicated movie vehicles in the country, right up there with the DeLorean and the Ecto-1. Fan-made versions still appear at car shows, Comic-Cons, and sometimes even in the occasional very confused neighborhood.
Number 14. The $17 million bet that paid off. Dumb and Dumber was made with an estimated budget of $16 to $17 million, a mid-range budget. And as we mentioned earlier in the list, a large part of that money went directly to Jim Carrey. The studio was basically betting the entire movie on a comedian whose fame had only just started to explode, and they were nervous about it.
This place is ugly anyway. You and me, we're family.
Promise never to drift away.
Then, the movie hit theaters on December 16th, 1994. It opened at number 1 with $16.4 million and did not move from the top spot. For 4 straight weeks during the holiday season, it stayed number 1, while every other movie fought for leftover attention underneath it. By the end of its theatrical run, Dumb and Dumber had earned $127.1 million in the United States and $120.1 million internationally. That brings its worldwide total to about $247.3 million. On a $17 million budget, that kind of return is exactly the kind that makes studio accountants extremely happy. And it finished off something even bigger.
Farber beans and a nice bottle of Chianti.
In 10 months, Carrey had starred in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, which made $107 million, The Mask, which made $351 million, and Dumb and Dumber, which made $247 million. That is over $700 million at the global box office in a single year. The man went from a rising comedian to the most bankable face in Hollywood at a speed that still looks unbelievable, even on paper today. And the success did not stop at theaters either. The movie became a cult classic through home video sales and cable reruns, and it later led to an animated series, a 2003 prequel, and a 2014 sequel. Dumb and Dumber kept earning money long after it left cinemas. A risky, gross-out buddy comedy made for $17 million turned into a $247 million hit and cemented itself as one of the most quotable and profitable comedies of the entire decade.
Number 15, Aspen was a lie. Now, for a movie that feels like a tribute to Aspen, Colorado, almost none of it was actually filmed there. In fact, the real Aspen reportedly rejected the production.
Where beautiful women instinctively flock like the salmon of Capistrano. I'm talking about a little place called Aspen.
So the crew did what Hollywood does best. They created their own version of Aspen across 2 different states. Most of the outdoor street scenes, including the famous moped arrival, were filmed in Breckenridge, Colorado. The ski village look worked perfectly, snowy sidewalks and instant Aspen energy, without the trouble of actually filming in Aspen. Then there was Park City, Utah. The fancy party scenes and many of the hotel interiors were shot at Deer Valley Resort. That polished, luxury mountain feel that suggests old money, that was Utah. The airport scenes were not even in Colorado. They were filmed at Salt Lake City International Airport, hundreds of miles away from where Harry and Lloyd were supposed to be headed. And the Danbury Hotel exterior was actually the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, the same hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. A cozy rom-com style hotel on the outside with horror history underneath. And in typical Dumb and Dumber fashion, Jim Carrey reportedly left the Stanley in the middle of the night during filming because he believed it was haunted. The man could deal with imaginary ghosts on screen, but not in real life. So Aspen became Breckenridge, the gala became Utah, the airport became Salt Lake City, and the hotel became The Shining. Hollywood stitched it all together into one seamless, completely fictional Aspen that most viewers never questioned.
Got room for one more if you still want to go to Aspen.
Where did you find that?
Some kid back in town?
The most convincing thing about Dumb and Dumber's Aspen is that it never actually existed. And there you have it, 15 weird and wild facts about Dumb and Dumber. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments, and share this with a friend who still says big gulps, huh? Unironically. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.